Hello there. Yeah, I had this thought this morning. I wanted to show you a portfolio video that I made, which is just me flipping through my portfolio. And as I was watching the video, this was like 2 or 3 years old, I realized, wow, things have changed so much that I needed to put the whole thing in perspective and show you. I wanted to show you kind of where I started and then where I ended up, which is after that portfolio video. So anyway, I think a lot of you are going through this process of learning and not feeling sure about if you're going in the right direction. Am I learning fast enough? So I wanted to kind of show you some of the ups and downs that I've had in the development of my work and how strangely things have kept cycling back to this particular photograph here of me first discovering creature design. I remember this very vividly. I was sitting on this couch, and remember thinking that toys are always these big-headed characters. I don't know if someone gave me this, but I found this little green creature with this tiny little head, and I really loved the proportions in that. And that was my first kind of like indication of what I was going to be doing for the rest of my life is creatures and characters and these long, thin characters based on this little thing that I discovered. So anyway, that was kind of like the beginning of it all. And this is one of my very first drawings. I have the ages on here, which is pretty good. I think it's 8. And you can see already, the very first drawing, I was already interested in robots. And here's my reportage. There you go. And I remember doing the drawing and not being happy about it at all. You know what I mean? I remember thinking, oh, I can't draw. And I showed it around to some people, and they said, yep, you can't draw. But it was the beginnings, and I kept drawing and goofing around. This was age 9. Now, I did tons of horrible drawings, right? So I'm just kind of, what I did is I collected the highlights and actually threw away all the bad drawings. So between that one drawing and this drawing, there was probably a whole handful of horrible drawings that ended up lost in time. But this was the very first time I started drawing directly with no pencil erasing. And then I colored it with these Crayola markers. And a friend of mine said, couldn't believe that I did it. It's like, you did these? And I didn't think it was that big of a deal because I thought it was badly drawn, these weird shapes and things like that. And I was just kind of goofing around. But I think I stumbled across something by mistake. I wish I had an art teacher saying, yeah, do more of that direct drawing. But I didn't. So I still kept drawing and erasing and copying Marvel Comics and all that type of stuff. And then still, once in a while, I would do my imaginary drawings, based on kind of like a version of Star Wars, I guess. My first art book, which I'm trying to do now. I've never done a successful art book. But anyway, here's one of my first ones done with like masking tape, and here's some of the stuff inside the book, horror things. I just did a horror scene now. I'm shooting at my own live action film right now, and we did this horror scene like last night. So I haven't matured one bit since those old days. Donald Duck, crazy. I worked at Disney, but I showed, you kind of project your, I don't know, you project things that you like. And I remember spending hours and hours and hours copying this drawing. But what I was doing subconsciously, I think, was saying, I want to someday do that, whatever that is, Disney or whatever. And, these were copies. And I remember always feeling very, very, what's the word, guilty about copying. I was like, oh, yeah, I drew it directly in pen, but it's just a copy. So I never felt fully satisfied with it. And I didn't really learn much from it either. What I should have done is if I were to take 2 superheroes or 3 superheroes and mix them together, I'd still be copying, but I'd be creating my own work. It's like, ugh, I wish I could go back in a time machine and just say that to myself, but I can't. So I'm saying it to you guys. Again, copies, but, I guess I was learning something. Maybe I was learning a little bit about patience. Again, more copies. Although I started to change. I think I changed the female character. So I started to, draw the monkey from one thing and then the character from another. And this, ironically, I just went to see the new Planet of the Apes movie for the third time. So I'm still attracted to the same stuff. You know, it's hilarious. This is really embarrassing. This is you know, an assignment where you have to copy a grid. I'm sure you guys have done this, where you have a photograph, you draw a grid on the photograph, then you draw a blank grid on another piece of paper, and you copy it. And I remember I did it, and one of my classmates said, and everyone in the class like, "Oh my God, John, that's so awesome!" And one of the guys came up to me and was like, "No, that's so easy. All you do is copying from the squares. That's not a good drawing." And I remember feeling really bad about that. I was like, "Yeah, you're right." So a lot of times you're always going to have people put you down. You know, you do something, some people think that, wow, it's really great. But you tend to remember the one person that said, oh, that's not good. So anyway, now when I look back, I think of it as just a stepping stone in development. I don't think of it as good or bad. I just think of it as something that I experienced that, you know, I probably will never need to do again. And this was taking the same idea with the squares, except instead of drawing it, I just would color it in different colors and stuff. It's just like art school type stuff. And then still with the squares, still copying photographs, which I don't recommend that you guys do because it took me a long time to unlearn a lot of this stuff. But I guess it wasn't a total waste of time because a lot of the stuff I'm going to be showing you at the end of this video is going to be photorealistic stuff. So it's kind of interesting how things kind of, again, cycle around. This is a drawing I did of my cousin Trisha. Where I was just drawing took me so long that she ended up falling asleep while I was drawing her. But there was a certain emotion that I felt like I captured in the drawing that I feel like I'm capturing now in my film work. Again, cycling through, and they got that Disney character again. And some more cheesy drawings. Colored pencil, which, as you can see, it doesn't really give you much impact to your work, but the pencil and the colored pencil. Maybe that's why I'm so intense about you guys not getting into colored pencil, because it doesn't really give you much impact. So I started working directly in ballpoint pen, and what I would do is I did this drawing of this character, and the mouth was so bad that I folded the piece of paper over. You can see the line here. And redid the mouth. I still couldn't get the eyes, the nose, and the mouth organized. This was drawn from a photograph. And then this tank on the side was drawn from my imagination. So that tells you the level of drawing. Whenever I started drawing out of my head, stuff started getting ridiculously childlike. That happens. That's normal. You should draw from reference and absorb reference when you're a young person. There's no reason to do this type of thing. I don't know if I could find tank. I guess I could find some tank reference. Back then we didn't have the internet. I didn't have access to a library. But I probably could have dug something up. I could have probably went to a toy store and begged my parents to buy me a tank toy and use it as reference. Blues Brothers. So here I started. This was after doing that drawing directly in pen, still using the grid. But drawing directly in pen after about 3 years or 2 years, I started to gain some confidence. And I think when I did this drawing, I feel like, I can do that. I can draw from a grid. I can draw directly in pen. Now let me stop doing that. So I kind of abandoned that. I remember I showed this to my grandfather. I grew up with my grandparents, and this is the only drawing he ever liked that I ever did, was this drawing of Linda Ronstadt. I found out later on that he actually had a crush on Linda Ronstadt. So that was part of the reason why he liked the drawing. He's always asking me, why did you do landscapes? Like, I don't like landscapes. This is when I first discovered Heavy Metal magazine, which is a fantasy, adult fantasy magazine that would sneak into my house. And I ended up working for Heavy Metal later, which is cool. And then back to some pencil rendering. You know, I would just start rendering certain areas and leaving other areas pencil, just to kind of show off a little bit. Struggling with the colored pencil. I could get some realism, but it would take forever, hours to do this type of thing. And then I started getting into some pencil, light and shadow. I was taking a drawing class. Still drawing from magazines. I guess I did subconsciously crave drawing from a live person. I had no access whatsoever to a person, and I didn't think I wouldn't even think of asking a friend of mine to, hey, can you sit there and I could draw you? Never even crossed my mind. Never even entered my, because I wanted to do my own fantasy stuff. I didn't want to draw real things. And then my obsession with this kind of vampire woman, which I've never done a successful version of this. Maybe I should do one soon just to get it out of my system. And then airbrush, really the dark times for me. Not very happy times. Perspective drawing, which I loathe with a passion. We had to do this for some art class, draw something in perspective. I drew R2-D2. And this is my very, very, very first figure drawing. I did this without any instruction. I thought it wasn't too bad. And my art teacher totally jumped on me and said, "No, this is terrible. You need to block in the forms. You can't just draw the way you see, and just block in those basic forms first." Found out later on that the drawing teacher was not very good, and if I just kept drawing just like this, I would have done fine. But it took me down this very, very dark tunnel for a couple of years. And he wasn't that bad of an artist, but he was a little foolish. He didn't know that different people draw different ways. So I ended up having another teacher come in and pull me out of the darkness and get me to draw again. This was, I think, second year of college. This is the very last rendering I did. I remember I did this rendering and I said to myself, I proved that I can do realism enough with the realism. I want to get into something else. This was almost like literally the very next day. I just broke free from realism. I had to do a poster on, euthanasia, where you have to, put someone down because they're too sick. And I could not take the assignment seriously. Organ donating. People are doing these very serious posters. I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't. I just went berserk. And I did these drawings, which took me like less than 5 minutes to draw with Crayola crayon. It was interesting going through these. You work very, very hard, then you say screw it. Then you work hard on this other thing, and then you get to a certain point, you say screw it. Then this was the big turning point. I didn't know it was a turning point at all. I was just like doing my thing, and my teacher said, "Oh, you should look at artists." And I was looking at Gustav Klimt, and I think all this stuff was based on Klimt. And I did the drawings. I showed it to him, and he said something that really irritated me. He said that you're drawing way above your own artistic level. And I was like, what does that mean? I did it, so it must be my artistic level. He said, no, you're drawing much better than you know what to do with. And I think he was right, because I didn't know what to do with it, and it didn't really take me places until a few years later. I kind of stumbled across something. I was sort of copying Gustav Klimt's style, but I didn't really know what the heck I was doing. And I think he was 100% right. It's kind of funny. Damn him! But this was a big turning point, because I started to finally look at fine art. And I just started doing all kinds of, this is mono prints, and looking at Jeff Jones briefly. I wish I looked at Jeff Jones' work a lot more. I just did it just to kind of pass the time. But these are the type of things I would like you guys to do all the time, is to kind of keep drawing from your heroes a lot. Don't just do it once like I did and then forget about it. Because what happened is I didn't really learn. I did a little thing, it kind of opened up my door a tiny bit, and then I would forget it again. I didn't really take it further. Nothing was evolved. I was just kind of groping in the darkness. But I think the good thing was, at least, is that I started doing a lot of figure work. Okay, so now I'm going to show you a portfolio that I used to show around a lot. Now I don't show it around at all, of some of the styles I was doing when I was working at Disney and all that type of stuff. Okay. Since I'm showing it kind of to showcase a lot of different things, a lot of different styles, I don't really personally mind if it has quite a bit of work in it. This is a huge line drawing. I might be able to show this a little bit later. Let's see. So this is, again, my portfolio. So this first one was done as for a Fantasy India project, and it was all done with a photo collage type of a thing, similar to what we were doing in the previous assignment. And these are some magazine covers that I had done. I have these flagged off
for other projects and other ideas I was going to be playing around with. But Heavy Metal magazine was a huge influence on me when I was a kid. And when I first started learning Photoshop, I decided to turn my artwork into like magazine covers. So that was the idea behind this. I just scanned in the actual magazine and replaced all of the work and just put my work in it. I'd like to get my work someday on the front of a Heavy Metal cover, but we shall see. This is a visual development project I did for an animation studio, and then I just used the artwork for my own design, just as a practice when I designed it and turned it into a book cover. And this is some of my own artwork. This is some of the work I do for a gallery. I have several shows in art galleries now. And again, it's still dealing with the layout, you know, laying out the pages, but also, you know, hopefully, I don't know, large shapes versus tiny little details and things. I'm not, you know, not that this is the only way to design, but this is the way that I've been designing now for a while. And I'm just now kind of breaking free from this and switching to the kind of photo collage work that I do now. But when I'm introducing myself to a class, I like to show some of my work, similar to what I did in the first class when I introduced myself to you guys then. Let's see, there's some horizontal pieces. Let's see, maybe I'll try to flip these in the computer later. That'll make it simple. Let's see. Actually, let me just flip them over now. There we go. So you can see, you know, I try to keep all the horizontal pages together, then all the vertical pages together, but just different kinds of line drawings that you can see here. And all of this stuff was done for gallery work. Let's do it. Get back there again. Okay, here we go. This was an animated film. I designed my own animated piece, and I animated it. It took me like 3 years. And definitely, animation takes a long time. And this is, again, a fantasy project that I had worked on. This is some visual development stuff for Disney. But anyway, so I try to keep the development stuff, the rough sketches in one place if possible, and then the other kind of like more concept designs, I will put them all in their location. Okay, so definitely trying my best to lay out the work as much as I can. Atlantis, this was a job for Atlantis. A lot of this work was done for Disney. And I just want to kind of generally flip through this work just to kind of show you some of the work I've done. A lot of these art books that I'm telling you about or showing you has been a huge influence on me and my work. And so this is kind of a representation of all the things that I've studied, from cultural work to fashion, you know, studying fashion design. Alphonse Mucha is another influence on me, huge influence on me. But then the Star Wars films, redesigning the Star Wars films. So I almost feel like it's weird that I'm looking through this now, because my work has changed so much since these days, but still a lot of fun. And then at a certain point I switched, you know, so this is like halfway through. People start to feel like, oh yeah, I kind of get a sense he does a lot of different types of drawings and he likes design and all that. And then there's like hopefully a bit of a surprise where like, oh, wait a second, what is this? And then it moves into all the 3D three-dimensional sculpture work, which is a kind of completely different different type of style. Just, I mean, sometimes style is dictated simply by the different mediums that you're going to use. This is a fantasy, a giant boat. It was done for Treasure Planet. So anyway, you get the idea. And then these are free floating photos as opposed to the full sheets. And the reason I like this is easy. It's a 3-ring binder, so if the binder gets ruined or damaged, I can easily replace it with another binder. I can replace the pages. You know, if I don't like this page, right? Just take it, toss it away, or you replace it with something better, hopefully. So it's a very easy way to change and edit your portfolio this way. It seems obvious, but I know a lot of people that do very, very expensive portfolios, and it just doesn't have the flexibility. I think that this, for me anyway, this 3-ring binder does. Of course, it's all up to you. It's up to your own sensibilities. Okay. So anyway, it just goes on and on and on. Definitely not the, I guess a proper portfolio might be 10 pages long or 15 pages, but not 100 pages. But I like to do a lot of work. I keep myself very busy, and I enjoy the work, and I enjoy showing the work. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think I wouldn't teach my students to do a 100-page portfolio, but I really enjoy just being able to show a lot of the work that I've done. And I am pretty obsessive about trying to get the pages right, you know, like this in relation to that, something heavy next to something light. And, you know, switching now to small thumbnails, to even smaller thumbnails. Okay. So it's like a book, not quite the same as a book as a portfolio, but for sure it has the same sensibilities as a book. These are some of my photos, photography work as well, something completely different. I started off shooting reference material, and it ended up just segueing into just straight photography. So anyway, that's my entire portfolio. So again, just to give you another sense of how to lay something out. I'm not saying this is the right way, but it's definitely the right way for me. And I think it's important for each of you to start figuring out your own personal way of presenting your work.
So yeah, so after all that, you know, work and playing around, I always had this nagging feeling, and this is just me, but I had this nagging feeling that I wanted to do something more realistic. Okay, that was always hanging over my head after graduating art school and still not being able to do realism. For me, for you, it might be animation. It might be you know, something that is just hanging over your head. And I was teaching at a school called Noman, and a friend of mine, younger friend of mine, taught this class on how to do photo bashing and realism. And I was always kind of, every break I would kind of peek my eyes over and see his stuff. And I was like, Jared, man, his name was Jared Morantz. You can look him up. He did all the designs for Planet of the Apes. But I said, Jared, man, you got to teach me. You got to teach me your magic. And he's like, oh, it's no big deal. You just do this, this, this. And I was like, no, man. I got to learn this. So I kind of finagled my way into his class, and I was a student now, even though I was like 10 years older than him. And he said, dude, you're older than me. I was like, no, I want to learn from you. So I sat in his class, and it was about photo bashing, which is basically taking bits and pieces of photos and laying it on your canvas and making it look real. And I started blending it together, but all the art stuff started creeping in as well. We were in art school. We had to learn art, dabble in oil painting, and the light and shadow that I learned from those days back in high school started to creep in. So even though I was learning from Jared, I instantly started throwing in art history. It all kind of started flowing into my work. So then I just started doing some stuff. And I went back to heavy metal, back to the stuff I was doing in high school, revisiting later on post college, and now, later on again, back to heavy metal. So again, zero maturity. So, but yeah, then I started doing some stuff, and I was extremely happy. I'm very happy with this stuff. I've already moved on to other stuff, but the idea of partial realism and then partial painterly was something I really wanted to do. I didn't have the patience to do oil painting. I still don't have the patience to sit there and paint and mix paint. To paint the colors, never the right colors that I want, and I don't think I'll ever paint. I just can't stand it. But I love looking out in the galleries, and I encourage you all to paint. And even though I refused to paint, I did do oil paintings in college, and I did one oil painting every year. I always joke about this to prove that I can't paint, which is true. I would buy a big canvas, I would do all the sketches, lay out the paints, do this god-awful painting, throw it away, and do it again year after year after year, until finally when I met Jared and realized I don't have to do that. I don't really, yeah, it'd be nice to have an oil painting in a gallery where you can actually see the brush strokes, but besides that, I would rather do it this way, where I can do the whole painting, quote, painting, in like, I don't know, an hour and a half, where if I were to paint this by hand, it would take me 17 years, So anyway, so this is a way, so now getting into this photo bashing thing, I really feel like so excited because I was thinking about the portfolio I showed you guys. And I was like, well, my stuff has evolved so much since then. So anyway, this was the new evolution based on all the stuff that I was, dabbling around with in the hand portfolio I was flipping through. So this was the new, I guess, evolution, or de-evolution. Some of these don't work as well as others, but I felt much more happy because I wanted my stuff to be real. Now, you guys, of course, I'm sure don't have the same particular goals, but you do have a goal. You want to be here, or you have a vague idea of things that you tend to like. And that's why I said when you put together your Pinterest account, there are things in there that you tend to like that you may think, oh, I'll never be able to do that, or I wish I could do that now. Take those two things out. Take the I'll never be able to do that, and take the I want to do it now, and figure out somewhere in between where you say, I want to go towards that. Like I always loved Frank Frazetta and all this stuff, and I had posters of Frank Frazetta on my wall and Boris Vallejo, and I was like, God, it's been how many years? I will never be able to do a Boris Vallejo. Now I know I can do it with this technique for sure. So there's some backgrounds and things like that. So this is more painterly, based on like, oh, I don't know, N.C. Wyeth, and you're introduced to so many artists when you're in art school. Blade Runner. Returning to my roots, my love of Blade Runner. And, just other things I've gotten put down for this type of work, and I've gotten praise for it. But I personally like the direction it took me to. Now, my ultimate goal is not this. My ultimate goal is to do a film, do a real live-action movie that has creatures, something like this in there. So I'm still scratching and clawing to get to the other level, but I am enjoying the process. I'm enjoying the process much better now than I did when I was in high school. I was struggling, Now things start to flow, and I wanted to show you this too, to show, again, I'm still trying different styles. I'm still not repeating the stuff that I did in high school, although I am repeating the subject matter, but I'm not repeating the technique, I hope. So I ended up showing my work to the Weta studio. I was always kind of like, I always loved the movie Peter Jackson's King Kong, and also the visual style of Lord of the Rings and all that. So I showed my work to them, that painterly stuff that I just showed you, and they hated it. They didn't hate it, but they said to me, there's a difference between a concept artist and a concept designer. And we are looking for concept designers, which means they want clarity. They want every bolt to be rendered and stuff like that. Now, that kind of, again, kind of took the wind out of my sails a little bit. And ironically, sadly, I haven't done any of those paintings since. I showed my work to these people in Comic-Con, and it kind of, again, it took the wind out of my sails. But whatever. So what I decided to do is try to really embrace realism 110%, or whatever, 90%. So this is some of the new stuff I was doing. I would build this stuff in the computer. I taught myself ZBrush, built it in ZBrush, rendered it in another program called Keyshot, and I'm able to create something that's much more vivid now. Now I don't think you can get, I can get a little more, I don't know how realistic, you need it to be. But if I were to show this to Weta, they could build this, because there's actually a 3D model I can give them and say, dude, you can build it, get off my back. So anyway, so this is the next phase. Again, fascinated with the sense of realism. I want to do sci-fi realistic movies. So that vision that I've had ever since I did that first robot drawing when I was 8 years old, here I am still doing the same robot, ironically. So I'm still doing the same subject matter, I'm still the same person, but all those styles, playing around with all those styles, got me closer to my personal goal. You know what I'm saying? And I want to show you this just to say, if you keep going and you keep trying and you keep not being satisfied with one style, that your vision gets clearer and sharper and sharper. This is stuff that I probably couldn't have imagined when I was a kid, or maybe I could way in the back of my mind, or maybe I dreamed it. But now my vision of the films I want to make is crystal clear. Crystal clear is exactly, I would change I would make this into a muddy tire, but the idea is it's crystal clear now. So this is the next stage, is me, having, instead of having a drawing, having a very clear idea of my world, I guess, the world I'm trying to create. So anyway, I just wanted to, let me see if there's any more to show. I'll just talk while I'm clicking through. So this is it's been an interesting journey. I feel like I'm kind of halfway through the journey, hopefully, knock on wood. But it's been fun. It's been really fun, and I do embrace, and I love the idea of doing the new styles. Right now I've kind of took a break from science fiction, and I shot my own live action film, which we just wrapped last night or 2 nights ago. And I'm working with actors now and stuff like that, and sound equipment and lighting, and I can't tell you how happy I am with this journey. So now it's trying to pull all these things together, working with actors and eventually pulling creatures into the mix. So the world gets bigger, maybe more ambitious, but it's definitely been a really, really, really fun journey. And I wanted to show you this to show you that what you guys doing, you're in such a good position. You're taking this class. You're learning about the importance of master artists. You're learning the importance about embracing what you love. And that's something a lot of young people don't hear. They're like, oh, you should do this because this is what pays now. Or you shouldn't be an artist, you should be a doctor because that's guaranteed paycheck, or whatever. But the thing is, once you embrace those things that you really like, that's how you have a happy life. You know what I mean? And I think a happy life is more important than a lucrative life. You could have all the money in the bank, you could have 5 houses, and still be miserable. But if you go home every day and you're working on stuff that you're excited about, that is worth more, to me anyway, than money. And the ironic thing is that once you become good at what you're passionate about, you start getting paid to do it anyway. So you have both worlds. You have financial security, let's say. Sometimes things are going to be tougher. It's never easy. I've struggled and starved and have made money, and the full range. But all along the way, I've always had my artwork to go back to, and I've always had my artwork to keep me happy and keep me centered, keep me sane. And I wanna give you guys at least show you through example that if you keep going in your own direction, it'll take you places that are very, very happy, and you can also inspire others. So anyway, I wanted to pass this along to you and say you guys are doing a great job. Keep going, keep learning, and know that it takes time, but things will get better and better if you just take some of these ideas to heart. Okay? Great.